Who do you listen to and where do you get your advice? Today, we're going to talk to our coach of the Mastery Program for Master Networks and 5+1, as he's going to share with us how we find a qualified coach in our life, because we believe fundamentally everyone should have a good coach in their life. Stay tuned.
Get ready to improve your mindset, increase your skill set, and expand your network. Follow along as the CEO of Master Networks brings you over a decade of business networking experience. Welcome to Word of Mouth with Chaz Wilson. So, where you get your advice from matters. Typically, I know we start these episodes off, I ask a question, but I'm jumping straight to the chase today because I also feel very passionately about this. But where you get your advice from matters, and I think also taking that advice that you have sought out also matters. So my question to you is...
Before you ask that, why are you so passionate about this topic then?
I'm actually not quite sure. I feel like we reach out to people that we trust to get advice from.
Yeah.
And those people sometimes are not the right people we should be getting the advice from, or we get the advice that we have asked for, sought out, and then we don't follow that advice. And I feel like that's such a disservice to ourselves.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from
Okay.
with this. But my question to you is, what is the worst advice you've taken?
Man, the worst advice.
And you don't have to say who from,
Yeah.
but
Well, there was this time Katie told me,
there's the eye roll.
off camera eye roll. The worst advice, honestly, the worst advice probably was from someone in one of the things I can think of that first to mind is when I played football, was I probably should give it up.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I was typically at that time I was too small for the position.
Gotcha.
The reality is that give it a year or two more, and I put on 30 pounds and grew 2 inches. Like it made all the difference in the world, right? So, playing just 1 year in college, I probably should have kept with it. And so sometimes people say things and there's motives behind it, which I didn't realize at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I shouldn't have listened to that advice. I mean, ultimately I wouldn't change anything about my life.
Right.
Like I love it, but it wasn't good advice for me at the time.
Okay, so on the other side of that coin, what about good advice that you never implemented?
See, that's hard because if it was good advice, I probably would implement it. So I can't think of anything that was like, here's a good tip, go do it. And I didn't. Nothing that jumps out. I mean, maybe throughout the episode I'll think of something, but like nothing really jumps out to me of, hey, this is good advice. But I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's lots of things I've been told over time I just should have done them sooner.
Gotcha.
Right? There's that kind of thing,
yes.
right? Like,
I guess that's kind of in the same vein.
yeah, like I got good advice when I was young, like stay out of debt, but you get in debt pretty quick, and like that was dumb.
I think everybody gets the same advice
Right.
then.
So there's things like that I definitely just didn't implement as fast,
Mm-hmm. But ultimately you still did.
Yeah.
So where do you get your advice from now?
I mean, I think there's people everywhere willing to give you opinions, right, and their advice. In fact, a lot of it's unsolicited. Just go ahead and ask a question, put it out on social media. You'll get all kinds of advice, right? And a lot of times, the problem for me has been that I've taken advice. I admire people. I care about them. And so I'll take their advice. And the reality is that, or I'll hear their advice. The reality is that they haven't accomplished what I'm trying to do, right? And so sometimes because they love us, care about us, or we love them, we want to hear that advice. And sometimes we give it a little bit more weight than we probably should because they just haven't done that. It's like, I'm not going to give advice to somebody on how to run a marathon. I've never done it.
Right.
I'm sure I could come up with some great things to say about it, but I've never done it.
It may not be useful.
Exactly. It may not be useful.
Right.
And so I think sometimes there's that piece. But I get advice from people who really have done what I'm trying to do, right? And I seek those people out. I'm very intentional about seeking people who've done what I want to do. So I think about, okay, whether it's physical, financial, mental, spiritual, emotional, like whatever it is, relational. I mean, there's people that I looked at and said, man, and especially on the surface, but at least as I got to know them, man, they have a really powerful marriage, or he's a really amazing father, like whatever it is. And I want to know why, and I want to know how. And I'm like very into dissecting that the human component of why they are that way. And what are the good things I could draw from that? And so most of the people I get advice from are not names anyone on here would know. You know what I mean? Like it's not the biggest name in whatever. It's people who've accomplished it, who I admire and I trust. And I trust they're going to be honest with me in that advice.
So you find people who are currently where you want to be, and you seek them out, and
or they have been,
or have been.
Like for example, when I reached out to Dave Jenks, it wasn't that he was doing it at that moment, but he had done it. There's football coaches that like they weren't typically, or they weren't currently coaching at the time, or football players weren't playing anymore, but they had achieved at a high level. I wanted their advice. I wanted their opinion.
So let's go ahead and actually bring our guest into this conversation, because I'd really like for Michael to be part of it.
Yeah, love it.
Well, welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
So Michael is the head coach of our mastery program at Master Networks.
Yeah, I thought you'd be a perfect person to talk about getting advice and coaching, since you do that for a career.
I was about to say you do it for a living.
I was gonna say everybody's like, so what do you do? I'm like, well, it depends on what day of the week it is, But coaching has always been a major part of it, even back when I was actually coaching and doing that in high school for football and basketball and track and baseball and whatever
both of us have a football coaching background.
Absolutely, and I think it plays nicely into the business world as well, because there's just so many different elements of that for sure that you see.
So many.
What, both of you with football coaching backgrounds, what draws you to that coaching role?
Well, it's the thrill of the moment. It's not waiting to have a parent meeting. That's not the fun part.
No doubt.
But game time was always my favorite time, but more importantly, it was seeing players that there was a certain level of achievement that was put onto them. Like these guys can't do this. And I always tried to work with those guys and mold them and do something. And I would always work with A team, of course, and the B team and the C team and all that other type of stuff, middle school and JV and everything else. And it's easy to coach an A team guy. I mean, just your main job is just get them on the bus, right? The B teamers and the C teamers, that's where you had a little fun, because they had a little bit more personality. There was not much expected from them, but then if you showed them just a little bit of coaching, a little bit of expertise, a little bit of advice, you could see this huge jump. And I would always enjoy seeing the guys that would move from from B team as a freshman to a starter as a varsity player, and that was always a big thrill to see that.
The wins feel much better too.
Totally.
So I've coached my boys all through, and I coached high school for a number of years. There's 3 teams right now at the 5th grade level where they're at. And, it's like we're not expected to get a lot because there's teams that have been around longer than us. And I think there's nothing more exciting than taking a group like you said, who there's not a lot expected from them. But my competitiveness, the outsmarting the other team, the preparation, the hard work, all of it. And to see, I mean, honestly, you put months into a 8-second play on the field that gets executed, it's all worth it. Like, it's all worth it. And same in business. Like,
totally.
I could work with somebody for 8 to 10 months and have them go close one deal that they didn't think they could close, and it's like all worth it.
This past spring, I have to say this, because this past spring, my daughter was going to play basketball for the very first time as a 7th grader, right? And it was one of those leagues where we had a coach. All of a sudden, oops, sorry, we don't have a coach. Hey, do you want to coach? Otherwise, we don't have a team. And I was like, oh, geez. I have never coached girls basketball before, and I was like, I haven't coached sports in a long time, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. To save the team, I'll do it. And didn't know any of the other girls other than, of course, my own daughter. We show up to practice, we get there, and I'm kind of like, okay, so what's the evaluation stage here?
So literally low expectations on this thing.
Well, I'm like, let's do some layup drills. And I said, okay, I want you to just lay the ball up off the glass. And one of the girls raises her hand and goes, what's the glass?
Right. What's a ball?
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Oh, no.
And I was like, this is going to be a really long season. And we got beat our first game 28-0. 32-1 in the second game. And it's and I think I'm pretty competitive. And so after each game, I have to go out into the backyard and just have a moment for about 30 minutes just to kind of, the family says, leave him alone, just let him kind of gather his thoughts. But we didn't quit, and we kept working, and we kept working, and we found some skill, and we found effort, more importantly, and that was the key. And you could see it start to unlock. And the fourth game, we almost won. And there was like, I think, total of 8 games. We get to the 8th game. We win that game 13-8.
Wow.
We had 5 different players score. I still remember this. We had 5 different players score. I had one girl diving for a rebound, jumping over another girl on the other team. We win this game. You would have think we won the Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
March Madness.
That's amazing.
It was insane. The girls were going crazy. I'm going crazy. The parents are going nuts because the expectations, like you just said, were so low that anything above was just mind blowing.
But don't you think that's the relationship when you think about coaching? Is that the coach? You got a lot from that.
Oh yeah,
right.
I love
so did the girls.
Oh yeah.
Like the fact that they won this game, and I think that's where people sometimes in business think, well, my coach, I pay them to coach me, so that's why they do it.
Let's just go through the routine.
Yeah,
I'll just pay the money and I'll never apply it, and that's just not the mindset that I have in my personal life, and that's not the mindset I have in the mastery program as well too. I mean, we're not, as we talked about at the very beginning when when Chaz and I were talking about putting the coaching program together. I paused and I said, I don't want to do the normal quote unquote coaching program. I want an action based series, and he was total agreement with that, and I think that's what we've got.
And to go along with the sports stuff, we also said that it needed to be fundamental. Like I think, and I've fallen in this trap from a sports coaching thing. There's times of seasons where you have some good players, you have others, and you're like, all right, like how creative can we get?
Right.
And then you start to realize like you can get beat by even less talented teams. Why? Because they killed us in the fundamentals. Like they just crushed us. And I think in business, that's the key. And so it's action-based with the fundamentals. And that's what we bring to that program, which is why when Michael told me, too, he had this coaching background from sports, I'm like, that so speaks to me because I understand there's principles in coaching, whether it's sports, football, basketball, business. They're the same fundamentals that bring success along.
It's the foundational elements of everything. And if you master those, then you're gonna succeed at a very high level, no matter what you're doing.
Right. So key. So important. The other thing too, and so as you came on board with the mastery program, let's talk about this for a second.
Sure.
What ultimately is the goal you're trying? So I'm looking at the mastery program potentially as somebody that wants to join. Somebody's watching this. What's the goal you have as the coach? What are you trying to accomplish?
All in, and what I mean by that is it's not about me, and it's not about you. We always call you the general manager, and I'm the coach, right? It's not about the Jerry Jones general manager, right? But it's not about us, and it's not even really about Master Networks. It's about all of us achieving some type of increase in business together. And I'll just give you this. We just had a 2-week break because of the holidays.
Yeah,
I was kind of jonesing a little bit for the group, right? I was kind of missing the group because it's your extended family. That's what it's become, and there's a lot of great relationships that we've had in the mastery program that have blossomed, even though we're doing it by Zoom, and we always will do it by Zoom because we have people all over the United States. You still have a lot of really strong bonds, and those bonds have translated not only into personal life but into business, and that's been the ultimate goal is to find that tribe, that group that's going to be able to help you when you need advice, when you need people to lean on, for sure.
This goes back to a conversation we were having on a previous episode about power of proximity.
Exactly. I mean, it's key. Yeah.
Well, it's a component to this program. That's why personally, I'm going to draw the parallel. This is why I love coaching football, because it's a team sport. You have the individuals on the team, but it's a team sport. And the mastery coaching, what I love about it is the individual has their own business, but it's still a team sport because we're coming together as a group.
That's right.
To lean on each other, help support each other. And there's so much power in a team moving together to a goal. So again, as I'm looking at mastery, and I understand that that's your vision, why would I look at this program versus any other?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we try to do is we take the elements of Master Networks that are discussed in chapter meetings, but we put them into actual play. Prime example of that, we were going through Bond in the last chapter meeting, and we had a 15-minute long session on that. So then we had a recent mastery session on Bond that was allowing us, because it's an hour long, it was allowing us to dive deeper into bond. And I think we had a bit of an epiphany, and it was like, we just need to spend a whole session in chapter on each element of bond.
Yes.
Like, don't do bond in chapter, just do the B, right? And just break that down. And because they were really becoming one with their partner in terms of, really syncing up and understanding what their needs were and how we could really start to work and elevate. So we take those elements that are discussed in business, master networks and other businesses. I come from a technology background, so I parlay a lot of that in there, but we really break it down into those fundamentals. And it becomes, when you break it down into fundamentals, it becomes habit forming.
Right.
And when it becomes habit forming, it becomes part of your business, and you move forward and you see the increase.
And we're not giving theory. Like, this is what we do.
I can't stand theory.
Yeah, and all the things that we do, it's like, it's not some new thing that we're like, oh, we should try this with our people. No, this is what we do. And a lot of times we'll test things out with us first, and then we'll bring it to the group and say, look, this is our results in one of the 5 disciplines or whatever, and this is what we, this is how we did it. This are the mistakes we made. This is what we learned, et cetera. And I think that that's an important piece to what we're building and why there's success. But let me ask you this question. I've always curious, and especially like as I think about the parallel between, say, sports coaching and business coaching.
Sure.
How much, this is the $1 million question, how much of it is the player and how much of it is the coach, in your opinion?
Good question.
Well, I'm going to go back to a sports analogy, and I'm going to use this. And when I was coaching 8th grade track, I had a I say gentleman. He was an 8th grader at the time. Well, I say gentleman because he was 6'3", 315 pounds.
Right.
Justin Blaylock, right? And he went and played for Texas, and he played for the Falcons, and I coached him in 8th grade, and I was his shot put coach. And then we had another guy. His name was Nick Thompson, and Nick was our quarterback, and he was like this country strong dude. I mean, he was wiry, right?
Yeah.
So you got the big 6'3" guy, and you got the wiry cowboy kind of guy, and my job as a coach was just to get them on the bus safely and off the bus safely, because when we got to warm up at shot put, it was just total devastation, because they would get out there and on a warm up destroy everybody else by at least 6 feet. You could just see these kids go, "Oh, I'm done." I'm done before I even started.
Yeah.
And so, athletic ability, it matters. It does matter.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of people at the same time that had tremendous amount of athletic ability. I mean, kids that I coached them in high school, they seriously could have been playing on Sundays in the NFL, but they didn't have the discipline. They didn't have the foundational elements in place. They had all the tools, except they weren't mentally putting it all together. And I think that comes from not just the coach. I think that also comes from environment and what they have at the house. And I think that also lends itself to the mastery program. Who are you hanging with? Right, in a business world. Right, and I think that's a big part of it, because you have untapped potential that you have, and you're just not taking advantage of it because who you're hanging with.
I fundamentally believe that every person needs to have a great coach in their life. In all areas, right? I just believe that. But I'm with you, and somewhat though, and I've heard, players like Michael Jordan and stuff in basketball say that Phil Jackson got the most out of him. Right? Michael Jordan was a great basketball player, probably the best ever. That argument's going to be had for a long time.
He's the best.
I agree. By the way, I agree with you. There's no question.
Yeah. I mean, go watch the documentary.
Oh yeah.
He's the best because he kept the edge. Yeah. Right? And Phil allowed him to keep the edge and kept him on the edge. Right? And didn't allow him to get into
the fact that there's a documentary on him just
should
kind
speak
of
for itself.
Right. Like, nobody's doing.
I watched that with my family, and I still, my son's a basketball player, right? So we're all about that. And as soon as there was something on there about Jordan doing this, I'm looking back at him like, you got that? You see that? I mean, I'm like, you getting this? So I'm coaching him through the documentary.
Oh yeah, it's. But I think, and he talks about it, and I know that Kobe talked about working with Phil Jackson. I mean, Phil Jackson's a great coach. Yeah. And he got the best out of his players. He did it sometimes in an untraditional way, but he got the best out of his players. One could argue, well, could Phil have done what he did in other places? I don't think so, because he had great players. Could those players do what they did in other places? I don't know, because Phil got the best out of them. So, right? Because of perfect formula. And so that's why, as a business owner, looking for a coach who has done or been where you want to be, and go where you want to go is important. But then you have to show up. A coach isn't going to magically, right? You see what I'm saying? It takes both sides. You're not going to magically show up and be a better business
that
person.
gets you back to the theory, right? It's like, well, the coach has the theory, but if you don't have the application,
right,
and you don't listen,
right,
and modify and tweak, because you can have the best plan ever,
right,
and you might as well just throw that plan out the door, because that happens in sports, that happens in business all the time.
Yep.
Who in January of 2020 was planning for COVID?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to have the plan to be able to.
Yeah.
You have to know your business, but you have to be able to be adaptable to your plan.
You have to be able to pivot. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and I don't even like the word pivot. And I'm trying to say that because, again, I'm a basketball coach, and we use this in our chapter meeting.
Yeah.
And I had one of the gentlemen in our chapter meeting stand up, and I said, "Okay, do me a favor, pivot."
Yeah.
And he put one foot down and he started pivoting like basketball. I said, "Where are you going?"
Right.
And he's like, "I'm going in circles." I said, "Exactly."
I never thought about that.
Yep.
So it's not a pivot. It's
Yep.
a football term. Going back to football here. It's one cut and go.
Yes.
And so we would always tell our running backs, when you hit the hole, don't dance.
Plant that foot, cut and go.
One cut and go and plow through.
Yep.
And that's the mentality that you got to have. And that's what we've taken with the mastery program, because we could have panicked. Everybody could have panicked with COVID. We didn't.
Yeah.
One cut and go. Let's adjust. Let's move our business. Let's understand where we're at, what we need to do within our industry. Let's make it better. Let's go.
Well, let me just talk about a mindset that we've taken into the mastery program. I think, using the COVID example, it takes commitment in challenge. It takes commitment to, again, using that analogy, your running back gets to the hole. They put that one. You're committing. Yeah. You're committing to going forward and putting your head down and taking on the hit, whatever. It takes commitment in a challenge like COVID. And you program yourself for that commitment. That's why you do drills, you do practice, you get with your coach and you practice that. So it becomes second nature when, a big linebacker shows up and you got to put your shoulder down and go through it. It's committed because of the actions. However, my opinion is also that it takes commitment to learn how to retreat. You're committed to retreating every time it shows up. So I see these people and it's like, oh, COVID. To me, the problem wasn't COVID. It was what happened beforehand. Meaning, those who were in coaching, those who had practiced when COVID came, they just, now you're a 6'4" linebacker sitting in the hole at 300 pounds. Like, whoa. You see what I mean? Like, but those who retreated, it's like they've already been programming themselves to retreat every single time an obstacle comes up. And so if you're listening to this, the commitment I would have is like, how can I get around people that would help me next time it happens? How do I bulletproof myself from this happening again? Because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
What are you doing on the practice field to make sure that when the game time comes, you're ready?
Yeah, it's huge. And I think it starts internally. You've got to make that commitment. There's a great video out there on YouTube and other platforms from Bob Newhart.
Oh yeah.
And it's called "Stop It."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have my whole family watch this, and
Yes.
I think we've actually shown this in the mastery program. But it's like, it's a mindset, and a lady comes in and she's like, well, I can't do this because I've got this and I've got that. And he's like, well, we can fix it. We can fix it in 2 words.
Yeah.
And she's like, what is it? Stop it.
He's like, take out a pen, write this down.
Write this down. Stop it. You need me to spell it out for you? S-T-O-P,
Well, I think I love even before he's like, okay, once I start this, like,
I charge $5 a minute and I don't give change, and stuff like that.
It's so good.
Yeah. And, it's Bob Newhart. He sells the comedic timing on it.
Have you guys seen
perfect. It is the best.
Oh my gosh,
Everybody
it's
has
so
to
good.
watch it. But I have my whole family watch that. And if I see my wife or my kids starting to spin out a little bit, like the world, the day's just getting away from them, I just look at them and go, stop it.
Yeah.
And it's a centering tool. And they're like, all right, yeah, I get
Yes.
it. They don't like it, but they get it, right?
Shoot, I do that in my personal life, not necessarily even at work or in business, just on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and see, that's what happens as an entrepreneur, right? Business starts to spin out. You got to put out fires. You got to make the calls.
Yes.
You got to do this. You got to do that. And that's a mentality that you've got to learn and you've got to understand, is that you can't solve it all. You've got to be able to handle the priority.
Right.
It's not priorities, it's priority. Handle that first, then move to the next one. And that's a lot of what we teach within the mastery program, is to handle that priority first, and to when we do the 1-3-5 and really set the foundational elements in place and then start to put those into action. We don't do the 1-3-5 just to make it look pretty and set it on a wall and never touch it again. You know, it's
well, to use the football analogy even more and beat that dead horse, because but
it's
blocking and tackling. That's what we teach. We're not going to get into all the different fundamental or all the different creative, like, no, it's blocking and tackling. You have to learn that.
Yeah.
You have to understand that before you can get to anything else, and that's what we teach. So if you're listening today and you're thinking, first of all, you should be thinking, I need a coach.
Yeah.
And look, we're the best at what we do, but regardless, if you don't want to choose us and feel like that's just shameless promotion, at least have a coach. Go get a coach.
Yeah.
And make sure they're qualified. That's always the word I asterisk, qualified. Have they built a business? Do they know what they're talking about? That's why, that's what we bring is we're running businesses. We're not just full-time coaches. We run businesses, and this is what we do, and that's why it's effective to how we.
Well, that's why I said, what day of the week and what hat am I wearing? Because I'm the mastery coach, but I also run two businesses as well, right? And I've got a business partner on one side of it, and the other one is more me, myself. So yeah, it's a lot to juggle, but it's a passion. And if you've got the foundations in place, you can do it, and you can do it very well.
Powerful.
Well, thank you so much for making time for us
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah, great content. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm all excited now to go watch some NFL football or something. Talking coach.
We got a great football video for you to watch here. For those of you interested, 5+1mastery.com is where you can learn more about the mastery program that Michael was talking about. You can also register for a free opportunity to come to one of those coaching calls without any commitment. So you can check that out. You can hit up Michael at 5+1mastery.com or call Master Networks. And you don't have to be a Master Networks member to take advantage of this as well. So we're coaching people all over the country, having a ton of success. I was thinking too, when Michael was talking about it, we've had one person do over $1 million 2 years in a row. He actually just is about to surpass $3 million. Think about that increase. He started with us. It was $250,000 of gross revenue. Now he's going to do over $3 million. And that's just one business. He owns 3 now. And we have multiple people who've done over $500,000 and multiple people who now are over 6 figures in profit from their business. So come check that out at 5+1mastery.com. All right, we have a question coming in.
Which TV show do you want your life to be like, and why?
Which TV show?
Yeah, any TV show that you've ever watched.
This is hard for me. I don't watch a lot of TV.
I was about to say I don't watch a lot of TV. And the ones that I do watch, it's like Handmaid's Tale, which nobody wants.
What do I want it to be like, or is it like? Because mine's kind of like The Simpsons right now.
Oh, my gosh.
What would it be like? What do I want it to be like?
I think, the question was what you would want it to be like.
Oh, man.
It could be a movie, too.
Movie, too.
Either or.
If it was a movie, mine would be like Dumb and Dumber, probably.
Oh, my gosh.
That's
what you want it to be like.
Oh, man.
I mean, the other one was super weird. It was, would you prefer your head to be the size of a grapefruit or a watermelon?
What? I think we strike that one from the
watermelon.
Mango. Oh no, it's watermelon and what?
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit. I said mango. That's dumb. Okay.
What were you really into as a kid?
Ooh, what was I really into?
Can we define as a kid, like what phase of my life?
What do you want? What phase do you want to pick?
What were you into as a kid?
Like kid.
Yeah, 8 to 14.
I don't know, like books. I know that's so anticlimactic, but yeah, I was the kid who always had a book, was always reading.
So I was like a sports junkie, but I was into baseball cards. I had a ton of baseball cards. I still have them. I still have a ton of baseball. Somebody told me I really need to look into that.
That's
because
actually
they're probably
cool.
worth a lot.
That's really neat.
I'm probably like a baseball card millionaire or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
No idea. I actually have some really. I know I have some that are really worth a lot of money. Because everyone's like, oh really? No, I do. And what's funny is I kind of feel bad because I traded some when I was a kid, and I remember this friend of ours. I didn't know this kid. He's a friend of my friends, and he had all these cards, and I was like trading them. I'm like, oh yeah. Bob Smith, he's great. You should take this one. He's
Oh
like,
my.
oh, okay, here's Babe Ruth. I was like, actually, I think I got a Bo Jackson rookie card, which is probably worth a lot. So, like, seriously, I bet I have a lot of money in baseball cards. That's
Now
what
I
was
need to
into.
know for sure. So you got to find these.
Oh, I have them. I don't know. I'm not into it as much as I used to be, although if they're worth a lot, I might be into it. So.
Now I know what you're going to go do this weekend.
Yeah, baseball cards.
Next week on Word of Mouth.
I think there's a problem that could exist if people are waiting for something. Like, I'm waiting for someone or something to come fix this.
I was really nervous. I was curious what the future of master networks would be. I was concerned with my income levels, with everything shifting.
So my mantra is like, get busy, right? Get busy. Get into action.